we're going to configure our virtual machines on Azure, right? A VM1, and then web service, right? Yesterday, which I talked IaaS services, which I'm going to configure on that IaaS service on VM1. Then later on, I'm going to configure the DNS on that virtual machine so that that VM can act as a DNS over there and take that lookup from other services on that, right? Then again, I'm going to configure another VM2, and then what I'm going to say on that VM, I'll be accessing that web service which I configured on VM1. Don't worry if it seems to be high level, we'll be jumping out later. Here, web service of VM1, right? Then we'll create the private DNS zone to understand the concept of private DNS there. And if our time permits, we'll go on the L3, L4 load balancer, and then L7 load balancer there. So before that, right? If I'll talk you, if I'll say that cloud computing, right? If I'll say that cloud computing here, let me open that. So when I say, right, cloud computing, why we guys are moving, why this organization, right? Every organization frequently moving to cloud computing there. Yeah. So what I'm saying it here, right? Why cloud computing, right? Why everyone in this, like in that IT world is moving to the cloud? Why I mean, they have already a solution, right? They can configure their application on the on-prem. Then why then everybody is like now frequent days we are seeing that organization is moving to the cloud, right? Whether it's on AWS or Azure or GCP, and there are some other contenders as well. But these are three major cloud contender in market now. But why I'm moving to cloud? Why I'm saying it? Why everything is working on that on-prem good, right? Everything is the on-prem side is seems to be no issue with that. Then why I'm opting for that Azure or AWS or GCP here? There's a solid reason behind that, right? Why I'm saying it, why I'm moving it there. Because if you're running your application on the on-prem, let's say this is my banking application, just for an example here, this is my banking application, right? And I have a bank which names as ABC Bank, right? This is my bank, ABC. Now, bank is very confidential, right? It's very credential things which is stored, right? If you have your banking account, right, you use, let's say I'm using a ICICI bank, just for an example, this is my ICICI bank. What happened? I try to access details of my statement, right? Then I put my username and password, and which is very confidential, right? If others can know and they have that access of mobile, my mobile, they can take that balance whatever they want to take it, right? So it is very confidential, right? And it's a bank responsibility to manage the data which they are storing it. At the same time, you should be responsible about your details we are putting it, right? So it's very confidential things, right? I in that case, right, I'm saying it, if I move my everything to the cloud, right, so what level of access I will be having it, right? Level of access, it means that should I be able to control all security of my environment, right? Security means if any loopholes which is be existing, right? Should I be able to manage entire infra of my environment? Should I be able to match patchings or storage, right? Connectivity, which means routing, right? I'll be able to manage the connectivity of my infra or not. So let's say this ABC is currently have all that control, right? If there is a, let's say, if this ABC is currently on the on-prem side, this is my on-prem, this is my on-prem, and this is my cloud. So currently I have not moved to the cloud yet, right? And I'm telling you the difference, why I'm saying it, why I'm moving to the cloud. And yesterday we learned about the VNet. So VNet is going to help you out here to understand this basic thing here, right? So I'm ABC. This ABC is a bank. This ABC is a bank, and you know, bank is very confidential, right? It stores the data related to your money and everything, right? So now, if I'm having this, right, if I'm managing my banking applications on the on-prem, right, I will be responsible to manage the networking. Manage the networking means if my router, switches, everything, right? Let's say this is my data center here. I'm just take the example of put the picture here. Let's say this is my data center, right? This is my data center rack. Some of you have already seen that what is data center and what's it. If not, let me tell you that, right? So this data center, right, which exists on that on-prem on your physical environment which you have in your company. So what happened with the data center? You have the different. Hey guys, if you're not speaking, I'll request please go on a mute, right? So what happened with that, right? If you have the data center, if you have that data center at running on the on-prem, you're running your infrastructure on the on-prem, right? You have the different layer of servers on the rack. This is my one rack, and in this rack, what I'll be putting it there, I'll have firewall, right? I will be having the firewall to manage securities. I will be having a routers to manage the routing part. I will be having a switches to forward the traffic, right? And access point, right? This all aspects I'll be having it, and then all obviously server will also be there on which I'm be hosting my application. Now, currently all these things, right, is on the on-prem, right, is on the on-prem. Then what I need to manage it there, I need to manage that. I need to make sure, right, this temperature of my this racks, right, because this needs a very cool environment, right? If you anything that if they will have some heat, they will see some heat on this infrastructure, they will get burst out, right? They will go and they will become a dead, right? So now I need to make the temperature of my data center, it should be like in a minus, right? It should be in a minus temperature, right? I also need to manage, this is just the physical thing I'm doing it, temperature I'm managing it, right? I need to buy the land also, right, to put that info this data center there, right? I also need to make sure that I'm buying every servers, right? This firewall routers, which this comes with the cost, right? So I need to buy all that equipments there, right? Now what basically happening it here, right? I need to worry about everything, each and every aspect of this data center, whether it's on buying the firewall, buying the routers, switches, access point, server, need to maintain that electricity here, right? And need to, so this is what the physical things I'm doing it, right? If for the firewall, I will be having a firewall person, a firewall admin to manage my firewall, right? It's not like that a person should can manage the firewall without having the knowledge. So firewall is a very critical thing. A person should have the knowledge of the firewall. I'll be hiring him to manage the firewall admin. Then at the same time, for the managing this router and switches, I'll be hiring a network admin. I will be hiring a network admin here to make sure that my network is up to date, right? And my anything connectivity related issues, that person can manage it, right? I'll be my database is also there on which my application storing the data. So that DB admin is also needed. DB admin is also needed. Along with that, buying these racks and buying this server, I also see what all other things I need to make sure I should be having in proper place. Then for the Windows or for the Windows or Linux admins, also I need to hire it on the market, right? And then at the same time, I need to make sure all that equipment should go in a well way, right? In a well way, right? So there is like no access problem can occur on this data center rack, right? Apart from that, I am hiring these persons also, right? At the same time, I need to make sure my firewall is up to date on the security practices. Like it should not have any vulnerabilities there, right? It should not have any vulnerabilities there. If any vulnerabilities comes in my firewall, I need to remediate that, right? See what level of thing I'm managing it when I'm doing my on-prem infra, when I'm running my application on the on-prem infra. At the same time, I need to make sure that routers, switches should all have the vulnerability free and with latest patch. Let's say you are running a Cisco router there, right? Or you are running a Palo Alto firewall in your environment. You have the day to day, you have your in a 3 months, on a 6 month, you run that DR activity, right? On which you reboot your firewall and shift the traffic on that secondary firewall. Or at the same time, you do that vulnerability assessment and remediations, or you do that firewall rule lookup, right? Where you make sure that every firewall should have hardened there, right? And the network layer, if I'll talk about on that network admin, they should make sure that there should be a proper connectivity, a route should be in a proper way, the Cisco router should have that updated OS, right? So there are many things. At the DB admin also is making sure that the SQL database or no SQL database should have that proper version running on it, and the query should only be allowed from a designated person. Windows should also make sure that no vulnerabilities comes across, right? So everything is headache of a on-prem. Everything is a headache of the on-prem person, right? To manage all that things here, right? Like the firewalls, everything which I talked about so far. Apart from that, what else am I doing it here? What else I'm doing it here? So just think about to hire a to buy all this thing here, right? To buy all these racks and then setting the data center, setting that infrastructure here. This will comes with the cost. This will comes with the cost. This is the one cost. This is the one thing. And the other thing is I'm buying that, I'm hiring that admins, right? The different admins at each layer. They will also come with the cost, right? Making sure electricity and AC and air conditions, everything, they will also come with the cost, right? Everything cost will, I need to bear it. I need to bear it for it, right? But at the same time, the benefit also I'm getting it. What benefit I'm getting it? Every infra, everything for ABC banking, I'm managing it. I'm the owner, right? I'm the owner for this, right? So that's the one thing, I'm the owner. But the cost, right? Making that managing it, that are talked about the vulnerabilities and everything, managing it properly, right? All that things, what happened with this one, the cost will come, and we called it as a capex, capital expenditure, right? Capital expenditure and opex, operational expenditure, right? So managing that, buying the land, right? Buying the servers, we call it as a capital expenditure, and then managing it, right? Day-to-day operations and the admins which I hire, we call it as an opex there. So all that things will come with the cost. You need to make sure the level, if I'll talk about the level, what level of things you need to manage it with the on-prem, with the on-prem, right? Then you guys can get here. This is one thing, right? I talked about. So apart from that, right, you need to make sure that deployment, if you're doing any firewall deployment, if you're doing any, let's say I'm buy a firewall, a Palo Alto or Checkpoint or FortiGate, whatever that firewall vendor is, right? But what I'm doing it here, I need to make sure I should place that firewall in my current network flow. This is my router, let's say. I need to make sure that how I'm placing that my firewall in my current organization. So that's the headache of mine, right? If any connectivity goes down, I should make sure it should up and running, right? At the same time, the deployment should be doing by that network admin and the firewall admin, right? So it will be a bigger activity. You need to do it. At the same time, cost also, which I talked about, right? If you're opting for that, let's say you opt that firewall, buying that, guys, please go on mute if you're not speaking. So buying that Palo Alto firewall, and for every, it's not like you just bought the box and you're done with that firewall, right? Every year you need to renew that license, and it's very costly, right? Renewing a license, it's very costly, right? So renewing the license, right? And RMEs, everything, you need to do it there, right? Scalability, right? If let's see what happened, I am running a server here. I'm running a server in my environment, right? And that server is hosting an applications called abc.com bank. abc.com bank. You guys are following me, right? So far, can someone please confirm? I'm just trying to cover the basic things which I discussed
Yeah,
yesterday.
yeah. Yes,
Yeah.
Sumit.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Sumit,
So
I have one question. I didn't ask. Should I ask or you?
yeah,
Should I ask
let
later?
me, yeah, I'll just allow,
Okay.
let me compare this topic and then we'll go with the
Sure,
questions
sure.
as well, right? Yeah, thanks.
Sure, sure.
So what happened, right? Let's say I am having this ABC. Think about the example ICC. At this time, I am having a ABC. My ABC is an application and I'm running on this server. I'm running on this server, right? And suddenly this server, I configured with the limit, right? This per server can handle the request of 1000 requests per second. 1000 requests per second. This server is only capable of take it. And I mean, I configured this server basis on my requirement, basis on my utilization of that application, right? I understand that, let's say I have 100 customer and 1000 requests is feasible to me, right? But what happened all of a sudden, right? Somewhere, or let's say by attack happened or something happened, right? My customer all of a sudden got increased, right? Now instead of 1000, I'm seeing it 10,000 here. But this server is only capable of handling 1000 requests. So in that case, what happens? This server will get crash. You have seen it, right? You have seen it many times. Like booking that like book my show got cached, right? Or some other website got cached while having the heavier load. So what happened with them? Their application configured with the limited resources, limited thing, right? But now the moving up there, there is an option, right? Or there is obviously an option. You can increase that to 10,000 limit, right? But this will take some time, right? To increase that 1,000 to 10,000, there will be some time taken to increase that point from 1,000 to 10,000, right? And during that time, you will see what? You will see downtime. You will see downtime there. And that downtime, let's say I have the downtime of 1 hour. And for that 1 hour, my entire business is stopped. My business is stopped. It's not working. And I have the loss of revenue. Loss of revenue is occur for me. So apart from that, this is one thing, right? So that scalability also, I need to make sure it's right. Accessibility, I need to make sure everything from here to here, I should be able to access for my every environment. If I'm A to B and B to C, right? There is a requirement A to B and B to C have that connectivity. I need to make sure that they should be accessible to me. If anything goes wrong, let's say connectivity impacted between these two, you should be worrying about that. A P1 will get open and you will go on the call, right, to remediate that SIMS call. So all that you should be heading to manage that. Security, security, which I talked about, right? If any vulnerabilities comes across, right, any posture management, you need to make sure, like if any vulnerabilities coming across on remediations part, like in the respects of we are talking about networking security, if I'm opting for the firewall, I need to make sure it's vulnerability free, right? It's remediated. Rule review, I should do that rule review every quarter, or every DR activities for my uh, environment should be up and running, right? Not any rule I should be allowing it, right? This is not good to allow any rule there. So all that things on the firewall experts, or whether it's on the network experts, who is taking care of that on-prem person, that on-prem person, making sure he should be doing it, right? Then expertise, you should hire that admin, right? It's not like that person is not having that firewall experience of 1 year or 2 year, and you are asking to manage that entire fall in firewall infrastructure. It's not like so, right? So you see that if any opening comes for that firewall, they ask for, you should have at least more than 3 years or 4 years or more than that of the exposure. So because that firewall is very critical, like it's have that ability to stop your entire flow of that network. You just make a rule there and everything goes toss up, right? So that's what, like everything is, firewall is very critical device for any organization. Networking is also there, the router switches, but on the top of the layer, the endpoint should be the firewall here. So all that thing you're going to do it on that your on-prem infra, on the on-prem infra. Now what happened with that cloud? What happened with the cloud, right? So cloud is, let me go in my previous slide now. Now what happened with the cloud? Now I move to everything my cloud. Now this is my previously on-prem. On-prem for what? On-prem for my ABC bank. Now, this is my cloud. Let's say I'm going for that Azure cloud or whatever the cloud. This concept remains same for every cloud, right? The basic fundamentals things will remain same for everything, for every cloud. If you're aware about the terminologies and the services Azure is offering, it won't take more than 15-20 days to learn about that AWS or to learn about the GCP. Why I'm saying it, right? Because the names are getting differ, but the basic concepts and basic things remain same. Just for an example, yesterday we learned about the VNet, which is virtual network. If we go for the AWS, we call it as a VPC, virtual private cloud. And then what happened? It's accurate to virtual network. Everything like the subnet I talked about, right? Address range, which I talked about yesterday. Everything you're going to say similar thing. Even the subnet have the same name, subnet here. Address range will have the same name, address here, right? Everything will remain the same as it is. Reason also you will be saying it there, right? The address space concept. So everything will remain same. It's just the names that get referred. So like the same with the other technologies or other load balancer, you will be saying it the same thing, right? So we'll cover that. We'll cover on the later, but just let finish this thing. So I moved to cloud. I'm saying it. So managing this entire info, let's say it costing me 100K USD dollar, which is very big, right? 100K USD dollar, right? Now what happened? The cloud is saying me, which cost me the 100K USD dollar, they will, if my experience, I can say they will be able to manage everything on that within that 60K. How? The scalability, right? So you moved your organization. Now there are three different flavor of cloud services: IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. And at the same time, they offer that three different variant of cloud. What the three different? One is private cloud, public cloud, and hybrid cloud. Private, public, hybrid. Why private, public, hybrid, right? So this ABC, which is my bank customer, he is very frustrated managing all that expert on the on-prem, but at the same time he's also concerned about, if I'll move my everything to my cloud, what happened to my security, what happened to my customer who's having their money stored in my bank, how will be I able to take that part in my how will be able to I manage that security, or how will be I manage the networking concept, right? Because I'm okay to move my cloud to that, move my infrastructure on the cloud, but at the same time I need to grab most of the things, right? I need to grab most of the things of my environment. I'm okay to share that things with the cloud, but not all things, right? Like security is the utmost priority, right? I'm not okay to share with the security with my cloud environment. So in that case, what happened? In that case, for that part only, they come with the three different flavor: private, public, and private, hybrid. So private comes with the part, if we want to manage everything related to you only, right? There will be no connectivity with the outside. However, you can do that, but this cloud will be, it will be owned by you, completely owned by you. This cloud, private cloud, will be, now this ABC will completely own that cloud, in sense of they can configure their application, they can make the connectivity, right? And they can do everything what they want to do it here, and this should not be exposed to the internet at anyhow. They will have that own connectivity for their private environment, and they can connect your on-prem infra with that cloud environment, right? And with that application also. So this is where you are managing everything. You have your application on the on-prem, you're managing everything on that cloud. We call it as in private. Now what happened with the public? With the public also, it will be, you are using that cloud on the same provider, but at the same time, what happened with the public cloud also, you will have that some of that you can onboard maximum customer, you can onboard minimum maximum customer there. Let's say I have one customer ABC, I have another customer XYZ. So I can onboard my applications, and here I can onboard my ABC also, XYZ also, under a single tenant, under a single tenant, under a single tenant, right? So I'm doing it, I'm managing it, but at the same time, that public cloud is having the flavor of other applications as well, right? Here I was only managing my application with no other flavor, no other are getting impacted here, right? At the hybrid, what happened with the hybrid? Hybrid is the flavor of on-prem and cloud also. So with the on-prem and the cloud, if you are saying it, I need to mix up some of the things, I need to manage some of the things, cloud you manage it, right? I'm okay with that. Then you can go for the hybrid. You can go for the hybrid. Now what happened? Hybrid is a mostly used environment, mostly used, right, with the company, right? Private is also there. Some of the customer, like the giant in the banking industry, they use that private, but it costs more because a dedicated thing is getting provided to you, a dedicated, right? Think about this way: if I'm offering up one-to-one things to you, right? If I'm offering something which is only limited to you, right, this will be cost more compared to that if I'm communicating everything, communicating to multiple persons to you, right? So that way, private cloud cost more, public cloud cost lesser, but at the same time security is also concerned, right? I'm onboarding other applications there. And that hybrid cloud is the mostly used because it has the flavor of both on-prem and prem infra. Now after that, right, now there are three different things where I can categorize my application: IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. IaaS, everything, this three words, right? As a service, as a service, as a service. Now, what differ? Only this I, infrastructure, PaaS, platform, SaaS, software, right? Now here comes the concept of VNet, which we talked about yesterday. To understand that IaaS service, right? Just think about that. Just nothing to learn more. To think about that infrastructure as a service, where you are going to configure the VNet. If you're configuring a VNet for any services, like if you remember yesterday, I configured a VM and I use that VNet there, right? If I'm configuring application gateway, I need, which we not covered, but I'll tell you, if I'm configuring application where also I need to have that VNet and subnet in place. So where that use of VNet is coming, you can consider that as an infrastructure, right? Infrastructure, the platform where they provide the platform, like the storage account. What happened with the storage account? For an example, storage account, they provide, you create the storage account, right? And you can then, after, you don't have to do anything, you can dump any data inside that. You can dump any data inside that, like videos, audios, or any files you want to store it, right? So platform, they are providing it, I'm utilizing it, using my data to be stored there. What software is doing, you don't have to worry about anything about the software. Everything about this software is getting managed by your cloud provider. How? Think about that in real scenarios. You have SharePoint, or let's take more granular example. You have that Outlook, where you get the mail and everything, right? What happened if Outlook goes down? You don't have to worry about that, right? Microsoft will take that, and they are working on. They should work on that to make it up. If so, SharePoint goes down, right? So what happened with the Outlook? Microsoft is providing you as a service there, as in software as in service there, and then you are paying for that Microsoft license. Let's say I paid $13K, right? And you are paying that license cost to Microsoft, and then you are consuming that. You're consuming that application there, right? So for now, you don't have to worry about the networking, security, infrastructure, right? Data storage. You don't have to worry about anything there. Everything is getting done by the cloud provider, or your that provides service provider, which you are having it there, right? So this is IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. If I talked about what all IaaS services are there, so see, here I talked, right? Here I said VNet, if you're configuring, this is infrastructure. It does not mean you cannot configure the VNet with the platform services. But directly, there is no way to configure that the VNet with that platform services. There are ways which we are going to see, like the private endpoint, service endpoint, which will be coming a later of this course. But there are way to do it. But directly when I'm configuring my VM, I need to provide a VNet as in prerequisite. I'm configuring my application gateway, I need to provide my VNet as in prerequisites there. So that's the thing here. This is about, now at the same time, I'm doing that PaaS, IaaS, and SaaS services, right? If you look at this one, I was worrying about managing my security, managing my high availability, managing my my scalability, managing my infrastructure, storage thing, data things, everything. At every layer, I was worrying about security, right? When I'm managing at the on-prem, I was also worrying about network things like routing, switching, and everything. I was also worrying about what data storage, how my application is going to store the data there. I was also worried at the same time about application thing, how I'm going to host my application, right? And how I'm going to accessible it on the internet. I was also be worrying about the physical things, like buying the data center, buying the racks, procuring the license for everything, right? And then what else I'm worrying about that? If you're running any virtualization, like you're running any VMs, and make sure that VM runs on the virtualization, that also you are worrying about that. And then most important thing, at the time of load get increased, right? Scalability. Scalability means what? Scalability means your infrastructure should be scalable enough. If the load gets increased, automatically they will handle the load. So scalability I was worrying about, right? Or you can say auto scalability, right? And at the same time, I was also worrying about for what? Scalability, and then yeah, so scalability is there, I was worrying about, and managing that entire uh, patches of my environment. All the things I was worrying about when I was on that on-prem. This was the on-prem. Now what happened with the cloud? What happened with the cloud? You don't have to worry about anything. The security, I'm worrying about the security. The cloud will say, okay, I'll provide the security to you. I'll provide the best of the security in the security market industry, right? I'll provide that security. But you're saying no, some of the security for ABC. Let's say you have one normal customer, right? You have your e-commerce site and you're okay to share the security with them. In that case, you can all share that everything with that cloud, right? And then they will manage that security with them. But now that ABC, which is the banking customer, he's saying, no, I won't be able to share everything with my cloud, right? So in that case also, cloud is having the flavor. They can manage this. They can share the responsibility, which we call as a shared responsibility, right? Shared responsibility there. Network, they was worrying about the network, hiring a network admin guy. Now, when we move to the cloud, you don't have to worry about what will be my how my routing will happen, how will my next hop is going to work. If that routing hops is not working, right? If reachability is not there, don't worry about that. Cloud will do that. Data storage also, they will provide the services platform like storage account, right? Database, use that services and resolve your issues with the data storage. So I don't have to worry about that. I'm just opting for the service and I'm paying for it. Application also, if you have your code ready, let's say I have written a code for .NET, I've written a code. So what Azure is saying and what other cloud provider is saying, if we don't worry about the code, if we don't worry about the infrastructure, right? How am I am going to, because hosting an application, Tomcat server or hosting an application require all these things, right? But Azure is saying, bring out your code, right? And I'll provide you everything from infrastructure to platform to exposing it to the internet. I'll provide everything. Just bring out your code. So that thing also Azure is giving to me, right? Virtualization also, we can spin out multiple VMs in a minute of span, right? So that also Azure is giving to you. Scalability and auto scaling, they are very good in that, right? If load gets increased and you're opting for that service, auto scale it, right? And let's say at a time, my application is saying is load of 10 requests per second. If you opt for the auto scaling, right? Opt for the auto scaling. Now this load goes 100 requests per second. You don't have to worry about that. Automatically Azure will spin out the resources. They will that horizontal auto scaling or vertical auto scaling, right? They will do that auto scaling at their end, and you just need to opt for that service. And you will only pay when the auto scaling will happen. Let's say for 29 days, you are just running with one resource. You are running with the one resource. Now, and you opt for the auto scaling services. Auto scaling services there, right? And now for 29 days, you're not seeing that auto scaling happened, right? And now for one day, you're seeing that auto scaling happened. For one day, you're seeing that auto scaling happened and resource increase. So just for the one day, you need to pay the cost to cloud. You need to pay the cost to cloud there, right? That's it. Nothing else you need to pay it there. So, and that VNet, which I talked about, that comes with the infrastructure as in services there. And example for infrastructure and services for some of them is like VNet, subnet, VM, app gateway, front door, traffic manager, which I'm going to cover all that things in our course. But on the traffic manager, you don't need that VNet, but yeah, that's the thing. But you covered this traffic manager as an IS services there. So that's about what is basics of cloud computing, why I'm moving my infrastructure to the cloud, why I'm doing that, uh, opting for the different services, what is that IS, PaaS, and SaaS related services. Now, to cover, show you more on that IS and PaaS and SaaS related services, right? If I'll refer this diagram, if I'll refer this diagram, right? Now, what happened if you're using that IS services? This is my IS. Then what you have to do it, your cloud will manage the storage, your cloud will manage the networking, that VNet, subnets, everything, right? Your cloud will manage that compute, which is that virtual machines, and then rest of the things you can manage it there. You, let's say you configure a virtual machine, right? Now you are managing it, that virtual machine, like not in sense of security, not in sense of networking, right? But configuring that applications, like yesterday I configured a IS services, right? So I'm doing that. My cloud is not doing it, but I'm doing that, right? OS related things, if you want to upgrade your OS or degrade that OS, everything you need to worry about that. At the same time, platform, you just worry about data and application there. Data, you bring out the code or bring out, let I am configuring that storage account. So what I'm doing it there, right? My application is storing the data inside that storage account, but rest of the things, my cloud is doing it, not worrying about the storage, security, compute, right? VMs, OS, and runtime related things. Software as a services, if I'm opting for the cloud for Outlook, what happened? I just need to share that I need to buy 13 license, right? And these are my person email ID and everything, right? I just need to give the data and things over there, and rest of the things my cloud is going to work on that part. So this is about what is basics of cloud, why I'm saying it moving to cloud, reason behind that moving to cloud, right? And then uh, complexity managing things in on-prem infra, right? And then what next? I told you like different flavor of cloud, hybrid, private, public, hybrid, and then IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS related services there, right? And then each and every level, what are the complexity I'm saving it with, and why the mainly infrastructure nowadays is moving to cloud. And now after that, like let's say you move your infrastructure to the cloud. It's not like that after moving to the cloud, you're not seeing that complexity. Nowadays, what happened? Organization seeing a increase in the cost, increase in the cost. So manage that cost, right? You run that cost optimization activity, which we'll see it later on. Once you're aware about that, what is the cost and everything, and how that cost comes here, right? So that's about more on that basics things. And also at the same time, right, I am not doing it scalability, which means auto scalability. My cloud is doing it. I don't have to worry about high availability also. My cloud is making managing that high availability. How? If you remember yesterday, right, we talked about that availability sets and availability zone. There I told you, right, if my VM goes down, then what Azure is giving to me, they are giving me a update domain and fault domain, right? My replica will get created in different racks of that. So this is my racks, right? If my within the one data center, right? This is my data center in East US, which is running, right? East US data center running, and my VM one is here. What happened if all of a sudden Microsoft roll out some update to this rack? Now this rack is not accessible. So now my application goes down. No. What happened? If you have that update domain, right? That update domain, it's a concept of AZ900. If you have that update domain in place, what Azure will do, it will create a replica of your VM into a different racks, like the same way, right? Which you seen it here. If in that on this diagram, right? You have the racks. Like this is one of my rack. This is my second rack. This way, you have your racks on your where on your on-prem infra, right? Let me copy that on your on-prem infra. The similarly, right? When you deploy anything on that Azure cloud, they will create a underlying physical infrastructure at their data center. At their data center, it's not like everything is happening in air, right? They will create a underlying infrastructure on their data center. So this is my East data center where my VM is currently running, right? And now this is one data center here, and this they roll out that update. Then they will have the replica. They will have your exact replica of your VM into a different racks within one data center, right? And if any fault happened, if let's say electricity stopped or power stopped to this rack, then also what happened? Your VM will accessible to you via different rack which is available. So this is inside the one data center. So by that way, they are managing that availability of your VM. But what happened if this entire East US data center down, right? In that case, the concepts of availability zones comes. Availability zones come. Like the way I'm doing it within one data center, right? With the availability zone, it's a collection of availability set. So the same thing which I'm doing it in one center, I'm doing it into another data center also. If this is goes down, I'm doing it into another data center also. So that availability, high availability, auto scaling, scalability, right? Everything my cloud is managing for me. Now you guys can ask me question if any question you have it so far on this topic. Otherwise, we'll move further.
Sumit, I have only one question regarding this
Please go ahead.
hybrid. So,
Please go ahead.
suppose we have customer which is hosted on Azure, but their firewall is Palo Alto checkpoint. So, is it a come under hybrid or how it is? Because they are not using the Azure firewall.
No, so it depends, right? There are different ways of.
Okay.
Okay, let me tell you one thing, right? What you think if I'm opting for my cloud, right? If I'm doing my cloud,
Yeah.
but at the same time I'm going for that Azure cloud, or sorry, I'm opting for my environment on the Azure cloud, right? But now
Mm-hmm.
perimeter security, I'm opting for the checkpoint or either for the Palo Alto, not with that Azure cloud, right? So then what happened in
Yeah.
that case? Are you think that it's a hybrid cloud or uh, public cloud or private cloud?
No, I think it's a hybrid cloud because the firewall is connected via the different interfaces to this their environment. Okay. So that is it because it's not hosted
So
on this
I'll tell you, right?
Azure.
Okay, okay, sure. I'll tell you on that, right? What happened? If let's say you have your everything managing inside your cloud, right? You have
Yeah.
everything managed your cloud. Now, questions comes. I have my Palo Alto firewall, which I need to manage, or checkpoint firewall. I need to manage with my cloud, right? So there are two different way, right? What happened currently? If you're managing it on the on-prem, you buy a box, you configure
Yeah.
firewall rules, everything inside that, right? And then
Yes.
make it plug in inside your organization, right? With the routers and
Yeah.
with the internet, right?
Yeah.
With Azure, what happened? If you're opting for Palo Alto, checkpoint, and everything, right? You have, let me show you that. You have a by default template in that, a VM template on that marketplace.
Mm.
Let me show you that. So on that marketplace, right? If you go search for that checkpoint or search for that Palo Alto, right? And then they will provide you the cloud and then license cost, right? They will include that license cost with your invoice that is generating it, right? So what happened if I'll go in the marketplace? Let me show you that. So this is the, again, my things are deployed in the, now if you see that interface, right? You say that with the VMs on the firewall, you see one external interface, one internal
Yeah.
interface, one DMZ interface, right? Now what happened?
Mm.
Now think about, this is not my box here. I'm not having the box, but I opt for this template. Let me show you that. I opt for this template here. So checkpoint call, we call checkpoint as a cloud guard here. I add for this checkpoint cloud guard networking, right? So I add for this
Okay.
services here, this firewall, right? So as soon as I'm creating it, so what happens? See all that, right? Gateway load balancer, high availability, skill set, management server, everything it will give it to me. If I'll create that security management server, right? So this is going to be hosted on what? This is going to be hosted on a virtual machine. Like that, yesterday we
Yeah.
seen that virtual machine, right? This
Yeah. Correct.
firewall is going to be hosted on that virtual machine. And now on that virtual machine, you've seen that there was one NIC which I talked about, right? So
Yes.
that
Yes.
NIC will have that on here. So like the way you're saying it, that external,
Mm.
internal, or firewall, right? On that on-prem, you will have that NIC on that VM. You can create another NIC for internal, right? You can create another NIC for your DMZ. Now again, things are completely hosted on your cloud.
Cloud only. Okay.
Okay, yeah, sure. Any further questions, or should we move forward?
Yeah,
No.
so
No. I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you.
yeah, Sumit. So, in my environment, we have the servers also, and we have this one, uh, this checkpoint firewall also in the cloud. So, how
On the
will
cloud.
on the single VM all the servers and this checkpoint will be deployed, or in
No,
different VM?
no. So checkpoint, right? For if you're deploying checkpoint or firewall, any fire perimeter security firewall, they need a dedicated. So I'm not deploying it on the firewall. I'm doing it. I'm just going to marketplace and I'm opting for a template there, right? And this firewall, let's say 40 gig is there, right? I'm opting for that 40 gig, and this is going to be deployed inside a VM, right? And that VM should not be used by any other thing. This will be dedicated to the firewall. And now, if you talked about your server, you have your server where you host your application, configure your code there, right? But this should not get utilized by the firewall VM. This firewall VM is entirely a different, which only serves the purpose of firewall.
Mhm. So we need to in my environment all the traffic, this point to this one. If anyone
Correct.
accessing,
That
first it
that
will
will
to hit to the firewall, then go to the server.
correct. That
From one.
routing, right? That basic routing. If server is want to reach out to the internet, right? One thing,
Mhm.
Azure will directly provide you internet, go to the internet, right? But the real scenario, this way it won't happen, right? Let's say your critical server is this, is right. So you can't allow your critical server to go directly on the internet, right? Then what you can do, you can set all the server traffic to that firewall, right? By the routing part, we attach that UDR here, and that UDR will send the traffic to the firewall, and firewall will do that lookup on that policy and then send the traffic to the internet. Make sense? Yeah.
Sumit, one doubt.
Do that routing in later on. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, Sumit. So you told one virtual machine would be dedicated for the firewall, right?
Yeah.
For the server, like a multiple number of instances can be created in a virtual machine, like multiple
Yeah,
servers can
obviously.
be.
Yeah, you can do that, right? Let's say you have one server. This is what happened, right? So there are two different way, right? Nowadays, you heard about that Kubernetes. Kubernetes is not related to your answer, but I'm just giving you a heads up here. So Kubernetes, you heard it, right? This is also a way to host your application. But since you asked for the VM, right? What happened? Let's say this is my VM, and now you need to host your DB application. You need to host your database inside that virtual machine, or you need to host your app applications on this VM, right? Like the Tomcat server or like that Nginx server, you are hosting it, right? You can do that on the one VM. You're doing it. It's not recommended. So spin out a two different VM, one for the DB and one for the app, and then utilize them as a DB server. Utilize them as an app server.
Okay. So it is like importing the images into the VM, right?
No, so DB is database. If you want for the importing that, Azure provided database services as well, right? Now, if you're saying it, I just need to configure on the virtual machine. I need to configure my database on the virtual machine. Then you need to configure the database. You need to make sure you need to do that database installation on this DB, right? You need to install the database on this DB. But at the same time, you're saying it, no, I'm not worrying about all these things, right? I just need to opt the services from the database on that your cloud provider. Then what happened? Azure also provide a database, but that's not the contest here. They also provide a NoSQL or SQL database here.
Now my doubt is like in a virtual machine, can I add in like 4 different web servers?
Yeah, you can do that, right? On one web servers, one web virtual machine, you can host multiple applications there.
Okay, okay. So I'm asking in the context, like for example, there is like 3 web server in under a load balancer. I need to configure all 3 web server in one particular virtual machine. Can I do that, right? Hello. Hello, Sunil.
I think we lost him.
I
Yeah.
think we lost.
You guys can.
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Now
Yeah,
we
no,
can hear you.
yeah, just a like very
Hello, can you guys hear me? Hello.
Yeah, Sunil. Yeah,
So that's what I was saying it, right? Let me share my screen.
yeah,
So let me know if you see my screen, right?
yeah.
You guys can see my screen, right? No?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. So
Like-
that's what like we always saying it, right? So you can host multiple application, right? Multiple application. You have one VM there, right? You have one VM. Inside that, you can host 15 website or 16 website or 16 web server. You can host multiple web server inside one virtual
Okay,
machine.
okay.
Okay, so we good?
Yeah.
Sumit,
One
actually,
thing like
Guys, I'll request if you're not speaking, please go on mute because this disturbs the class, right? Thanks. Thank you.
Sumit, I have
Yeah.
one question.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So when you say like spinning out the VM, what exactly it means?
Spinning out a VM. I mean, yesterday if you seen there, right? Spinning out creation of a VM.
Okay.
Does it make sense, right? Creation of a VM. I'm saying it's spinning, but a creation of a VM is like creation of a VM. When I say spinning of a VM.
Okay.
and Smith, until unless
Mm-hmm.
update domain goes down, availability zone will not work, right?
I'm sorry, say it again, please.
Until unless update domain goes down, so availability zone will not work, right? So
No,
if we
it will-
create update domain in the US, East
Correct.
US.
Right. So what I was saying is right. This is my update domain, right? Update domain and fault domain, right?
Mhm.
Just the one. So there is not only one possibilities, right? They are only rolling out your updates, right, on the Microsoft way. So update domain will only come in a picture when any updates happen to your server, right? But the fault domain, if any disaster happen or this data center not accessible, right, then availability zone will come in a picture. It's like for any scenarios. Let's say for whatever reason, this entire data center is not accessible to me for any reason, right? XYZ, tornado comes, earthquake comes, tsunamis come, right? For any reason, this is not accessible. Then this other part, which is I have it in a West US, let's say zone pairing, we have it West US. This West US will work for me and make my data available to me.
Okay, if the person is in India, so there is a availability zone in India, so he will connect to US, right? If the
So-
file domain in US.
Correct. So that part also we are going to cover, but just to ask your question, right? Azure comes with the concepts of zone pairing. Azure
Okay.
comes with the concept of zone pairing. What happened with the zone pairing, right? If you have your data in central India, so nearest zone will pair with you. Central India, right? Then you will see that zone pairing with South India, because this is near to you, right? But if
Yes.
South India is also goes down, you will have the other pair. You have your East US, you will go to West US. You have your North Europe, similarly, you'll go to Central Europe, or this way they have the zone pairing concept. They pair the zone with each other. So if you opt
Got
for
it.
the availability service, they will direct you there and there.
Yeah. And one more question, like in a private cloud, so we can directly purchase bare metal from the cloud environment.
Everything will remain same. It just everything private cloud is dedicated to you. If the way I'm managing it here, right? I am going to manage it there as well, but this will only applicable to me only.
Okay, so will it be there scalable for the private cloud?
Yeah, every services will be there, right? So let's say currently I'm giving that services to 200 customer. Now I'm only giving to you. Every services of mine will be applicable
Oh,
to you. All
we
services,
are the only dedicated customer, right?
right? A
I would be.
dedicated customer from the Azure to cloud to your ABC. You are dedicated, right? But you need to pay the cost. The higher, so I'm providing one-to-one services to you, right? The one-to-one services to you for that services for under your tenant. What happened if I opt anything? I get a tenant or Active Directory kind of thing, which you have it on the on-prem from the Azure, right? So within that tenant, Azure,
रहन दे तू और सारो वेड़न दो हिंडा दे दो
Muskan, if you're not speaking, please go on a mute. So that way, right? A dedicated services is going to provide to you. I'm sorry for that. Dedicated services is going to happen to you, right? A dedicated one. That cost is also you need to pay, right? All that services you ask, like that scalability, auto scaling, high availability, everything will remain same to you, but you will get a one-to-one privilege on there.
So in the public cloud, it would be shared customer, right?
Yeah,
Like
it will be shared customer, right?
any one kind of an example, how it is like a private one would be for a dedicated customer and a shared customer. What would be the difference? Because we would be paying high, right? Like private customer.
So what happened with the private cloud, right? You will be only onboarded inside one tenant, right? But with the public cloud, so what? Let's say I have a customer in my organization, right? Let's say I have a customer ABC. I'm a cloud provider, right? So what happened? Azure provide the cloud provider services to their different CSP. So I am a cloud provider, right? So this is my Microsoft. Think about that. This is my Microsoft, right? Now Microsoft has given me a license. Microsoft has given me a license. Go and give my cloud provider services to ABC, right? So the man in the middle will call as a CSP, cloud service provider. The man in the middle will call the cloud service provider here, and then they will, all that services is the Microsoft one, right? The services managing it, deploying it, and then giving that invoice to that ABC is done by your CSP here. Now this what happened, this CSP can onboard multiple applications, multiple customers to there, right? Now they onboarded ABC, they can onboard XYZ also, they can onboard DEF, right? So they can onboard multiple I can say multiple customers into their resources. So it what happened, it's a same cloud, one cloud on which I am onboarding to my different customer. Now what happened with this one, you will be having a shared resource, since you are already have one cloud and you are onboarding multiple resources, right? So you will share the shared resource. What shared resource I'm saying it here, right? you will be having a same physical, you will be having same physical infrastructure that will be sharing to that particular person or particular customer, right? And hardware related things, like any software related things, you will be only sharing with them, right? So think about this one. I am configuring a one virtual machine for ABC. I configure for one virtual machine for DEF, right? So all that, right, is going to be deployed inside that Microsoft underlying infrastructure. So the same under the same tenant, under only one tenant, right? They are going to deploy under one rack. And now let's say you only opt for the one cloud availability set, right? So they are going to deploy inside there. So it's a shared things. Just think about that way. If you are using that public cloud, you are using a shared resources. They're using a shared resources which will be getting used by all that customer which you onboarded there. And this is cloud service provider. I can say, if you do you know managed services? You guys know managed services?
You mean in on-prem, sir?
No, managed services is something. Managed services is something where I will be acting to manage your services, and I can provide that service to multiple customers like ABC, this, right? Now you have that, let's say A, B, C, D, E, right? All they want to onboard their application on the cloud, right? But they are not have the expertise to manage it. They have not the expertise to manage it, right? Then this person will come here and this person say, okay, I'll do that, everything I'll do that for your environment, from doing the deployment. Once the deployment will happen, managing a day-to-day operation, providing the support, right? Everything I'm going to do it. But in that case, you need to pay me. You need to pay me, right? Then how that person will get paid? We call it as a CSP. When the bill, right? When the bill from the Microsoft will come. Let's say Microsoft bill has 12K, right? So by default, the invoice which will get generated from the Microsoft, they will add the CSP, managed services, CSP commission to their bill. So let's say the managing all that info, managed services CSP commission is 3K. Now total invoice that you need to pay to your cloud service provider is 15K, which includes 3K of your CSP and 12K of Azure. Make sense here? So just think about the shared services, which are the shared resources you are using it is called as a public cloud, because one infrastructure you are going to use it for everyone. It's a shared responsibility for every customer which I'm onboarding to my application, right? So that way your public cloud you're using it then. So I think no doubt here.
So with one thing, like any typical use case of PaaS, platform as a service?
Yeah, platform as a service, right? Typical use. Let's say this is my PaaS, right? I configure. So there are services we have not learned about so far on the PaaS related, but I'll give you an example. And don't worry about it if you don't know about this one. Let's say storage account or function app. Okay, function app. Let's just take the function app, right? This is a this is my PaaS based services. What happened with the function app, right? So currently, let's say I have written a Java based application. I written the code from my Java, right? This is my Java code. I've written it here, right? All that code I've written inside my Java code here. Now what happened? If I need to host this application, right? If you're writing a one application, right? Writing a one code there, you need to host that application to the internet. Let's say this is my Amazon, right? And I am done with my code, but where exactly I need to host so that person like you and me can access it from the internet, right? So for that, I need to have a server. I need to have an infrastructure. Everything is in need to place, right? But what happened? Azure is saying, bring out your code, right? And then deploy it on that function app. And then once the code will get deployed, everything from accessing it on the internet, managing that networking infrastructure, right? Security, everything this function app will do. So what happened? Function app, it just provide you a platform. You bring out the code here, deploy it, and your application is accessible to you. So function app no.
So it's like only like layer 7 only it will take care.
Correct. The layer 1, layer 2, layer 7, everything it will take, not the layer 7, right? Network will come on the layer 3, it will take, right? Transport will come on layer 4, it will take. Application layer thing, it will come on the layer 7, right? But on the what happened, it's taking on the layer 3. Are you managing the routing, switching, everything? No, you're not managing it, right? That layer 3 also it's taking it on that platform. Are you managing that transport layer things like the port and address translation? No, right? That's also function app is doing for you. You're just bringing out your code for the L7 and putting it there, and then every layer of infrastructure that function app is managing it to you.
Hello.
Okay.
Hello.
So if in case, right, you guys are getting me, right? If in case you have any doubt or you're not, if my pace is too slow or I'm going with the too high pace, right, too fast, let me know. I'll adjust myself in that way. But yeah, this is about the basics of the things which we covered, and that way, that's the reason I had taken that VNet yesterday. So you'll get that what is infrastructure as in services more detailed, right? If I should have not tell you that in VNet, then why you'll be getting it that infrastructure. So that's
So
about
one
PaaS,
last question.
SaaS. Yeah, please.
Yeah, if any company has a tenant in Azure, we have to consider that as a private cloud or
No, it depends, right? What so every whether you have the public cloud or you have the private cloud or you have a that hybrid cloud, you will have a tenant, right? Like for me, let me show you that. So for everything, you will have one tenant, right? You guys can see this default directory. So inside the default directory, I'll get the tenant there, right? So I will have the tenant. If I'll go in my AD, right, you will see that tenant will get onboarded for me. It's called at intra ID there, right? This is intra ID. If I'll go, let me clear out the screen. So this see that managed tenant, right? Everything I'm going to see it inside the managed tenant. I'll be going to get that tenant ID. This tenant ID is unique for you. Everyone is going to assign that tenant ID to you, right? Once you onboard your, once you create that your account with that Microsoft, right? You're also going to see that tenant, and that tenant ID will remain unique to you only, right? This will be unique to you. So that tenant ID is like it's just the identity for you to aware. Like Microsoft is going to know that you are that person, right? Sumit is the person who is like having this ID. So by that way, the tenant ID is getting created for everyone, whether you're on a public or private or hybrid cloud.
So if I am a company ABC, I would have only one tenant ID.
Correct. Right. You will only have one tenant ID. Inside that tenant ID, you can have the multiple. So multiple. So the hierarchy is like tenant is you have a tenant, you have one tenant, you only have one tenant only, right? But inside that tenant, you can create multiple subscription. What subscription? Like you have the free trial subscription, right? Free trial. Inside that free trial, you can create multiple resource group, right? Inside that resource group, you can host your multiple environment like dev, QA, stage, correct, and then prod, right? Tenant, and then subscription. You can have the multiple subscription inside the tenant, but tenant will remain one, right? And then resource group. Let's say this is I created free trial subscription, right? Now let's say I am in my company scenario where I do not have this free trial. So I created a subscription A. I'm creating a subscription B. I'm creating a subscription C, right? So what happened? A, I can host different environment. B, I can host my different dev, QA, and stage. C, I can host my different dev, QA, and stage here, right? So this way I can host multiple, but tenant will always remain only one.
So if a company acquires another company, A company acquire B company, will there any possibility to merge the tenant or only subscription?
You need to do that. So that migration part is a different, but you need to do that merging, or you need to onboard your on-prem resources to your cloud. Azure provide you, or Azure also provide you migrating from one tenant to other tenant. So in that case, you own that company. You did that migration, right? You own that company. You need to migrate that tenant with that Azure, your existing tenant. So migration of one tenant to another tenant is possible at every time. So that you can do it from migrating from one. Let's say you have that ABC tenant ID, right? Now you can migrate it to XYZ. So that migration we can do it, but that's entirely a different thing, which I'm not think I'm going to cover. Yeah, but you can do that. And resource group to this is possible. And resource group to resource group migration is also possible. So let's say you have a ABC resource group, right? Inside that ABC you have multiple resources like VNet. We just only talked about VNet, VNet, VM, and everything, right? We have it. Now you have another resource group, RG2. So you can entirely move your resource group to RG2, so that all the resources which you have it there, right?
That RC2 is in the XY company is possible or
no, so for it depends, like, so what you're having. So I'm just hoping that This is my ABC. I'm currently having ABC. You have one tenant inside that one resource group, right? You can move to different, like let's say this is one dev and this is QA, right? So I can move entire resource of the dev to QA.
Okay. Within the tenant resource
Correct.
groups can
Within
be.
the tenant, exactly. Within the
Okay.
tenant, the resource group movement is possible.
Sumit, let's say I have two tenants. Okay. So how can we enable a connectivity between them? Is it possible?
So in that case, you need to tenant connectivity. You need to set up so two different tenants, two different accounts for your Azure, right? So
Yes.
then you need to go for that connectivity of IPSec and all that. First, you need to create the VPN gateway, and then you need to make sure in the, because two tenant, right? Let's
Yes.
say two tenant. This is my one tenant, right? And this is for the Sumit name, right? And this is my another tenant. This is what ABC name. Now what happened? You want to connect with all the both of them, right? Then there is, I mean, these both are existing on the public, right? This should have another different infrastructure. They should have the different infrastructure. Now the requirement is to connect with them, right? You can't do that, right? You cannot, because that these two are the different. Just think about, this is my account and this is your free trial account. Now if I want to connect your account with my free trial account, how can I do that? Then I need to have some kind of connectivity over the internet. For that, I'm going to deploy a VPN gateway. I'm deploying a VPN gateway, and then my traffic will come on the VPN gateway here, and VPN gateway here. They will agree on that point, mutual associations, and then the traffic can send out from there to there.
Yes, so I was thinking like, is there any way like to use the Microsoft backbone to connect to this two tenant, because both are hosted in Azure only, right?
There are options to opt for the Microsoft backbone network as well. There is an express route circuit which they provide, right? Express route circuit which that route the entire traffic on the Microsoft backbone network. You don't have to even go in the public, but that's very expensive service. Which see that like in the AWS, I use a direct connect, right? The same is express route. You can opt for the express route circuit, but this is very expensive. I mean, it's a most experienced service in Azure cloud, right? But what company do, they off, so if they do not have the budget issue, right, it's not directly you suggest. If you like, let's say you are managing your infrastructure, right, and the requirement come to manage one tenant to the other tenant, right? How you are going to do that, right? You cannot directly suggest them with the express route. You can keep that an optional and say that this is that cost part you're going to see, and the other option which will be having as a VPN connectivity. I can connect a VPN connectivity on my firewall to firewall. That will see it, but the express route is going to offer you more better bandwidth from 10 MB to 10 gigs of bandwidth. This offer you, right, and dedicated circuit on the Microsoft backbone network.
Yeah, but this express route is only used to connect tenants, sir.
This express route used to connect the tenants also. This express route used to connect the on-prem infra. Let's say you have on-prem and you have the cloud. You have that on-prem and you have the cloud. And that express route circuit, what you want to you connect to express route in the on-prem, right? All that services on the on-prem you want to manage with the express route. And you are saying the same time you have the requirement. You should not move your infrastructure on the cloud. You should not move your traffic on the public, on the internet. When I say public, on the internet, right?
Okay.
Then this entire dedicated circuit with layout from the express route to your ISP. ISP ASN number is there, right? This is very high concept. ASN number is still there. With your ISP, ASN, different ASN will get laid out, and that entire traffic will get flow on this circuit. This circuit, and that too encrypted and with the speed of 10 MB to 10 gigs, right? So you can see that how fast and reliable this communication, redundancy, availability, everything is cloud is going to manage your express route circuit, but you need to pay for it. Okay, any further doubt, or should we move to...
Sumit, I have one question.
Yeah, please go.
If you connect both the tenant, it will work as a parent-child relationship, or it will be on the same with the same privilege?
So it depends, right? The tenant, if we are having it, right? If you're having the two different tenant, right? So one tenant is there in my cloud, and one tenant is there. If you have that MSP, CSP in place in between there, right? So that CSP can offer for the different tenant, because this is a cloud service provided to the multiple customer here, right? So for that case, what you can do, you can have one tenant as in parent one, which we call it as a, and the global admin will come in a picture to manage that entire one parent tenant, and then these are the tenant which will be there, call it as a child tenant there. So this way you can manage the parent and the child tenant. Okay, so now I think I answered your question. Now let's move to next topic here. Okay, Any further questions, or I'm just moving to next topic
Yes,
here, guys?
so Sumit, I have one question. So, like in my infra, like in a cloud, we have this Azure load balancer, Azure WAF. So it is where it is hosted, like over the VM or
No, so I'll cover you that. We have not covered that, right? Load balancer and everything.
okay.
The load balancer, that but VM, the they load balancer and app gateway, right? The load balancer, just to give you a one line answer here, load balancer and the app gateway, they use the compute services. They use the compute services, right? That compute services again hosted on that VM, but directly they are not using that VM services there, right? But yeah, so you can say that they use that compute services, they deployed on that compute services there. Okay, now
Yeah,
let's
we have WAF also, Azure WAF.
yeah, Azure WAF is on that Azure WAF, right? We call it as a Azure WAF we attach with the application gateway. I'm going to cover that. Don't worry about that. I'm going to cover that app Azure WAF attached to the application gateway, or Azure WAF can attach to your front door as well. Right. So what happened? Like the way you create that WAF policies, right? We create that WAF policies, web application firewall, right? And it prevent me with the OS attack, open web attack, right? And then I'm going to attach that web policy to my application gateway, or I can attach this web to my front door as well. I'm going to cover that, then it's make more sense because it's a high level topic which
Sumit, like one last question. Okay, so suppose we are using the private cloud, so there is a zone availability also configured by default, correct?
Sorry, say it again.
Suppose we are using the private cloud, okay, and there is a zone availability also by default configured, correct?
Yeah, zone availability by default configured on the private cloud, but if you're opting for the shared cloud and then that public cloud, you need to select for that compute resources, you need to select that zone, you need to select for the zone availability for the compute resources of yours, so that high availability and then zone availability will come in a picture automatically with them.
Okay.
Okay, so now let's
Hi,
move to the
Sumit.
thing. Yes, sir.
Most of the clients recently have a requirement of migrating on-premise to cloud only. So are we learning migration also in this course?
I'm going to cover the points right which is needed to do that, but the entire migrations I'm not going to cover it, like what all things we need to cover it, like I'm not going to cover that entire migration strategy because that's going to be another different course, right? And that's what we discussed previously. But yeah, I can tell you that points that needs to be taken in mind while doing that migration. Okay. Thanks. So I think
Sumit,
if you please asking the questions,
one question.
yeah, just the one request, right? If you ask the question, please feel free to ask, but ask on the topic which we covered, right? Otherwise, like it will be really hard to see the further things, right, which we have the agenda for today. Thanks. I hope you'll understand on that. Yeah, please go ahead. Someone asking something.
Yeah, Sumit, when we are creating a VNet, that time only it will come private cloud and hybrid cloud, where we are
No, that comes.
selecting.
No, when you're opting for the tenant, right? You need to tell them that you need to reach out to that Microsoft and give the request, right? If it's you're going for the public private cloud, right? You need to directly that your customer, right? Your sales team will update them that I'm going to opt for this service as a private, right? So then they will assign you that private and the public. By default, it's a public cloud which you're going to. The cloud which you're working with currently, it's a public cloud. So for that, you need your sales team and your team need to contact with them Microsoft for the private cloud only. Okay, let me go there and ask that other question. Ask that like work on the further agenda there. So that's about the basic things, right? That's about the basic aspects which we covered on today's thing. So this thing, right, which we talked about, like on the on-prem thing, what you need to manage, and on the on-prem side, you need to manage that.